The second Incursion, Broken Rain, has just released in the Division 2 and many players are rushing to give it a go. As with previous content drops, I want to get out a quick guide to give you a good idea of mechanics which in turn should allow you and your team to strategise and ultimately get through it. I will preface this video by saying that incursions are meant to be hard. If you're not a confident player, it will be a struggle, but in my opinion that's the fun of it, and if you keep trying, you will finish it. Me and my team used a range of builds for our first clear, so I'll list them up front, then reference later in the video so that the mechanic explanation is as clear as possible. Firstly, general team composition. Our team went with 3 red strikers players and 1 yellow Eclipse Foam / BTSU player. You can pick and choose how you set up your strikers players. We ran all 3 players with striker chest, 2 of which ran 2 pieces of unit alloys on holstering gloves, knees or mask. The third player ran 1 piece Seska for the crit chance, then Coyote's mask. There are a lot of ways to skin a cat with strikers, and no single one is inherently right or wrong. So go with what works best for you, but keep in mind incursions are extended DPS checks, so you do want to be leaning into the meta. All rolls on all striker builds are crit chance to 50 if running Coyotes, or 60 if not, and then crit damage. Weapons are up to you, but in my opinion, best in slot would be a Brazen ACS 12 for close range and a Killer Lexington for mid to long. Quick Step is great for transitional areas, and Busy Little Bee can be helpful if you want a tiny bit of extra damage, but don't aim for more than 1 stack. You don't want to spend all your time accumulating stacks whilst your team drops in front of you. The Eclipse build we ran looks like this. All rolls are to status effects and second rolls to skill haste. The general idea with this build is it should be locking down any high damage enemies and or big packs of enemy spawns whilst keeping the team roughly alive. Intermittently we switched to PFE tank builds to make some fights easier and safer. My PFE build looks like this, with the caveat that I am not a tank player and this almost certainly isn't the meta setup. Perhaps someone can drop their preferred build in the comments, but it worked fine for me in the sense that I didn't die to elites with it on. Let's get into a room by room. On loading in, you've got a half marathon to run to the first area. A bit into that run, you'll have this guy you need to interact with, then you can immediately keep running. Once you reach this area, drop down and you now just have to clear ads. Be very careful, there are 4 snipers positioned around the map who will destroy you if you don't position carefully. They will spawn on the left, right, middle and back of the map. Keep yourself hidden and take them out or foam them as soon as possible. Once you've cleared all the ads, you'll have this Warhound to interact with and a brief wait for other agents' timer. Get yourself ready because the first boss is about to spawn. This boss spawns from a car and wants nothing more than to punch you in the face. He will also set fire to the arena incrementally, which squeezes your playable area significantly. I'd love to say there was deep strategy to this fight, but my team found it best to stand to the right hand side of his spawn as he walks down to avoid major damage from ads. While he's walking down, he'll have damage reduction, so it'll be hard to kill him, but once he hits the ground, he'll lose it. Once he's fully dropped, pile everything you've got into him. The aim here is to eliminate him before the ads eliminate you, and you don't have a huge amount of time to do so. Once he's dead, clear the ads and you can move on. Once you've interacted with the Warhound and it started moving, it'll get blocked at these gates. To let it through, simply walk through this door to the right hand side and press the button. After regathering with the team, the gates will open and the second fight will begin. The second fight consists of a single objective, to kite the Warhound to the gate, but the Warhound has a health bar and there's a huge amount of firepower in the enemy's hands. What I'd recommend doing actually isn't what my team did. If your entire team runs far enough from the Warhound, it will stop moving. This is useful for 2 reasons. 1, because you don't have to have a player waiting with the Warhound for it to move, and 2, because you don't have any chance of the Warhound being killed by the enemies. Leave it there and you can come back to it later. Clear the enemies bit by bit, and be cautious as at the bottom of the hill there's an APC that you'll need to destroy. That said, there's decent cover and you can take your time here. Better to be slow and successful than push too hard, meet chaos and wipe. Once you've destroyed the APC, a load of heavies will spawn. Take them out, then there's this room to the left containing a button to press which turns the power on. After you've pressed the button, there's another button on the far side of the bridge which needs to be interacted with. Finally, and only when these buttons have been pressed in order, I have a theory that interacting with the second button first soft locks the encounter. You can move to the crane and interact to lower the bridge. Once you've dropped the bridge and cleared the enemies, go back and retrieve the Warhound. The Warhound, once it's reached its destination, will then explode and EMP the team, opening up the next area. Did I mention that this incursion's a DPS check? Here, after clearing the initial enemies, you'll meet the second boss. This boss isn't dissimilar to the first. All you need to do is destroy his backpack and then melt him. The caveat is that there are missile turrets all over the map which hurt. Keep yourself in good cover and don't bunch up too much. I expect that this is a mechanic that a way to counter will be found in the future, but currently we don't understand that. You'll also get heavy spawns throughout this fight. Dispatch of them quickly as they really hurt. Once the boss is dead, you're done. Clear the ads and move on to the next area. After traversing through the dam, you'll be met with the third and most mechanically clever boss of the incursion. I'm going to explain how to do the boss as the developers intended, but with a massively important pre-word. Currently, you can skip all of the mechanics on this boss by wearing Negotiator's Dilemma, marking the boss, and killing enemies. I'd be stupid to recommend that you pursue the full mechanical route as it's significantly harder, but here it is in case Negotiators gets patched. On walking in, you'll notice two things in the room that are interactable. A water valve and a control room, which pair to complete the objective Manage the Turbine system. You'll be immediately met with a ton of ads, so don't worry if you need to wipe a couple of times to properly orient yourself in the room. There are water valves on either side, the side you enter from and the far side, which correspond to the side of the screens. AKA the two left screens require the left water valve, and the two right screens require the right, both oriented looking at the screens. What do I mean by require? Periodically, a screen in the control room will turn red and read critical. You need to interact with that screen before heading to the correct water valve and interacting with it too. The screen will then briefly turn yellow before turning green again. For this reason, you should always have a player near the control room to spot critical screens as they come up. At first, your only goal is to keep on top of the screens and water valves, which can be done by a single player or multiple, and kill ads. Keeping in mind that snipers spawn from both sides of the map, sometimes in twos, and they should be an absolute priority. After a few screen rotations, a boss will spawn, with mechanics that build on the turbine maintenance you've already been doing. Ahead of the boss spawning, you should ensure one or more of your team has some way of EMPing the boss. We used an EMP sticky. You'll notice that the boss has a degrading blue line on her health bar, which makes her immune to damage. This is fine. Leave her alone as long as it's ticking down. The blue line corresponds to her charge, which ticks downwards but gets charged by turbines in a critical condition. Once you see a turbine activate, the boss will sprint towards that turbine and begin charging. Once you see the blue armor bar filling up as opposed to decreasing, you need to EMP her. This will immediately remove the blue bar and allow you to damage her. Don't forget to also complete the turbine after EMPing, as if you don't, it will be permanently removed, meaning you have 4 failed attempts at rotations before you wipe. It really is then just a rinse and repeat. You've got 4 phases of this, and then the boss dies and you clear ads. To recap on that checklist: 1. Leave boss alone when she's losing charge. 2. Wait for turbine. 3. Once the turbine activates and a blue charge starts rising, EMP the boss. 4. Complete the turbine with the corresponding valve. 5. Damage the boss. And 6. Repeat. After the boss is dead, you're ready for a transitional area. This consists of a few ads to kill and a couple of light puzzles to solve, which I'll leave in your capable hands. After completing the transitional area, you'll reach the 4th and final boss encounter. Similar to the previous encounter, this consists of 2 parts. One part to teach you the mechanics without a boss present, another to execute similar mechanics to ultimately kill the final boss. This is where we switch to PFE builds. We personally ran 2 to act as a bit of a relay race and speed it up, but that is a risky strategy and you'll be fine with 1. You'll see that in the first room, there's a laptop to interact with to gain access credentials. This will only be given to the player who interacts, so it's very important that your PFE does it. Once you've interacted, a short, roughly 40-second timer will begin and the second marathon of the mission starts. The player must run to the far end of the map, find another identical tower and interact with the keyboard in it to enable the gate boxes, of which there are 3, to be pressed. This is a pretty calm fight mechanically, but don't underestimate the ads. There is electricity on the ground, but it's survivable as long as it's only elites around the PFE player, and that raises the most important point. 2 purples, one of which is a sniper, will repeatedly spawn from the tower in the middle of the map. These must be the priority for the DPS players, as they'll instantly kill even a full blue PFE tank. Once you've completed 3 rotations of this relay race, you'll briefly exit combat. Use this as an opportunity to switch off your PFE build and back to a striker's build. For the final sequence in the Incursion, you'll be met with a boss and a few key mechanics you need to keep track of, but that operate in isolation. Firstly, you'll notice a water meter on the left-hand side of your screen. The goal is to keep this as low as possible, but how do you do that? Periodically, the gates, which you interacted with after each relay in the first half of the fight, will light up green and allow you to interact with them. They'll sound a siren at the same time, and once they do, your goal is to interact with them as quickly as possible, which will relieve the water pressure and stop the water meter climbing. If this meter hits 100%, you'll wipe. On the first gate interaction, all 3 gates will always light up, but beyond that point it's random and you'll just need to keep an eye and an ear out. As mentioned before, this just seems to happen on a timer and it seems to sit in isolation to the other boss mechanics. So, that's how you don't wipe the fight, but how do you actually progress it? Well, just trying to damage the boss will yield poor results as she'll heal to full health in a matter of seconds. What you need to do is to look at 2 weak points. One is on her helmet, the other is on her back, and you'll know when both are successfully broken as she'll start yapping at you via game comms. Once she's done yapping, she'll head to the tower in the centre of the map and interact with a shade crate. This will in turn spawn a mini-boss randomly from either the left or right hand side of the map. You need to take this mini-boss out, as otherwise he'll do a number on your team. Once dead, the mini-boss will drop a key. Someone needs to pick up the key, but anyone can complete the next step. They'll need to locate one of the shade boxes in the middle of the map and plant thermite on it. This can be any box, but you can't destroy the same box twice. Once you've destroyed a box, the instructions reset. You damage the boss's backpack and helmet weak points, wait for her to use a box, kill a mini-boss and plant thermite, all the while keeping on top of ad clear and most importantly releasing the water pressure when it pops up. Assuming you've got this rotation down, you repeat this a total of 4 times and from that point you're done. You can DPS the boss down. Once the boss is dead, clear all ads and you're done. Incursion complete. Apologies that this guide hasn't been super detailed, but I wanted to get something out with the basics as I'm already seeing a lot of confusion in the community. Most of this guide will almost certainly change as new strategies are found, but I hope this helps you and your team get through your first few. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments, and if you enjoyed, please like, comment and subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Peace.